I'd like to, I'm not a member of the committee, but I took a great deal of interest in this report, particularly because there's two sources of very good quality journalism that I use that isn't one of the big ones. And that's Senedd Home, which is run by Owen Donovan, and it's run entirely as a labour of love, and it is the best summary of these debates that you will see anywhere. And I would recommend any member of the Senedd, and I know I've spoken to the Deputy Minister about this before, any member of the Senedd use that as a source for finding out what has gone on post-debates, because it is the best summaries you will see, short of reading through the whole record yourself, which of course isn't possible. And I'm sure this will get a mention in his summary as well. This is not why I'm saying it, Deputy Minister. The other issue, though, is that the public notices doesn't apply to him, because it's an online service. So there is an issue with the publication of public notices. The other source that I use, and Senedd Home absolutely independent and supports independence. The other one I use is Caerphilly Observer. And the Caerphilly Observer is a stunning piece of work. It started in 2009 as an online source and now has a print run that runs across the Caerphilly borough. It is completely independent, and I know it is because there are stories in there that have driven me mad, but I also know that there are stories in there that have driven Plaid Cymru mad. And in fact, it's good to see that the Plaid Cymru people in Caerphilly insist it's a Labour rag, and the Labour people insist that it's a Plaid rag. So you know very well. And if there are any Conservatives in Caerphilly, I'm sure they'd say the same about other parties. And it is a very, very good source of independent information. Because they've got a print run, they can run community print notices. So they do get a subsidy by that route. So I spoke to the publisher last night. I had a chat with Richard Gurner, who started it, and it's his work. And one of the things he said was, if you go down the route of a direct subsidy, the problem becomes accountability. At least if you're doing the public notices, the benefit of public notices is there's a public service of which you're being paid for directly. And I know all the political parties that are represented in my community, the main political parties, advertising the Caerphilly Observer, and there is another form of public subsidy, and that is without fear or favour. So I think that is the better route with regard to recommendation. I think it's recommendation 7. I haven't got the report in front of me, but I think it was recommendation 7, Chair. But it doesn't disguise the huge long-term problems that the industry is facing. Good, proper, well-researched, detailed, accurate news is much harder to monetize than a clickbait post. That's the biggest problem facing the industry at this time. And I know we all go on Facebook and we provide our information as accurately as we can, regardless of party. I've seen members across this chamber providing good information on Facebook. But there is a tide that swamps us all. And the danger is this tide will swamp the likes of the Caerphilly Observer. So the problem also faced is that businesses that currently advertise in their print edition, as electronic media takes off, the newer businesses don't want to use the print edition either. They're currently keeping a good income through print advertising, but that isn't likely to be sustained long term. So the publisher of the Caerphilly Observer told me his answer to this is two things: continue that public services subsidy that we've mentioned, but also to, and I'll use his words, the solution is in developing highly engaged online audiences who are willing to pay for their information, but for that information also to be available to all. I know that not all of my audience, says Richard Gurner, Caerphilly Observer, is willing to make a financial contribution, but if enough do, then that could lead to a sustainable business model not reliant on advertising. It's a really tall order, but it's not impossible. And I tell you something, if you go into a shop in Caerphilly and you talk about a recent incident, somebody's likely to say to you, oh, I saw that in the Observer. They don't mean the Sunday Observer, they mean the Caerphilly Observer. People talk about that paper because it is a reliable and trusted source. And Richard is starting to see the benefit of that through people paying subsidies, paying subscriptions. The final thing he said to me was the Welsh Government has shown leadership in supporting the independent sector through the Independent Community Journalism Fund. This helped him keep afloat. But what he would like to see is that expanded. So it would be really important to see that expanded through the independent sector. Even though it does come back to this issue of state subsidy, it is at arm's length to an extent, which is beneficial. So that's where my interest is. I want to see good quality, hyperlocal journalism, even if it isn't in my favour. I want to see it. And I think the two shining examples that I identified today, Senedd Home and Caerphilly Observer, they're the ones who are leading the way.